in power. They've been in governance for 2 years, and it is appropriate that we do, okay, then again, it gets them, and also then they get me loud and clear. Thanks for that thumbs up, very assuring. It's appropriate that we look at 2 years being in power. We want to examine the achievements, we want to examine the ifs, the buts, the promises, the challenges, and then we'll try to round up by providing a grade. Because in so doing, assessing and evaluating of 24 months in power, we will determine what they did right, what they did wrong, probably try to quantify and see which one they do more, which one they do less, which one they could have done better. And then we have an idea for the following period of time that they will be in power before elections, where they will be taking the nation. So on this basis, we decided for host a very powerful and star-studded panel made up of academics and businessmen. So for just give a quick introduction on that. So today we get from all the way Trenton, New Jersey. It's an academic and a social media speaker as well, and a politician, Mr. Jesmed, Foday, Mami, Suma, whom all of you, if not all of you, but a large number of you will know because he's very prominent on social media. We've got Mr. Kutubu Mohamed Koroma, who is equally very prominent on social media. He's a broadcaster and the CEO of SaLone Top Forum. And we've just lost the other participant because the screen is gone black. Not sure, but I can just imagine it was the last one that we had, who happens to be an academic and a businessman, Mr. Roland O. Hamilton. Welcome to the program, gentlemen. So I want to start with you, Jesmed. If you can hear me loud and clear, Jesmed.
Yes, I hear you loud and clear.
Good. My first question to you, because this, and by the way, we'll be flowing in and out English and Creole, if you don't really mind. So my first question to you, sir, is based on small businesses, investment in kind. How can Sierra Leoneans help the government in terms of small businesses, and vis-a-vis, how can the government help Sierra Leoneans to go into that field? Because one of the things then which is lacking right now, as we understand them, now investment, bad faith investment, people that they lose confidence in the investment, but we want to begin first with the local one, like small business enterprises. What kind of encouraging words you will provide for small-time businesses as how the government will able to help them and how they self will able to help the country in return?
That's a brilliant question. When it comes to the issue of investment, I want to talk clear for people on the ground to understand clear. When it comes to the issue of investment, the biggest concept where they always play in are the issue of capital, access to capital. Now, when it comes to access to capital, several factors in the way they play, one of which is the interest rate at which banks them to go give out loans. So access to liquidity, which in this case, access to funds and money, and the ability for the businesses them for able to pay back. But if the inflation rate, it's in the double digits, in the 20s to 20 something, imagine if you get a business, you take a loan, you get for pay over 20 something interest rate. In some cases, it's over 30% interest rate. Then obviously, you will never take a loan of that kind of a situation there, invest them in a long-term investment, in long-term production, like a factory or anything we go for take a number of years because of the burden of the interest rate. Now, the government don't do all kind of things forget access to foreign direct investment, where they bring in capital from abroad for can invest in the economy. Well, then foreign investors and they get specific indicators that when they look at before they commit themselves. But one important hanging fruit, when they talk about hanging fruit, nothing that way easy for access. One important biggest source of investment to government not tapping it.
Jesmed,
direct diaspora investment.
Okay, fair enough. Thank you very much for that. I just want to pose the same question. You know, we run out of time. I really need for bring you on a special, like we talked about many months ago, because there are things where I want to let you articulate for the audience, you know, here and live there from an economic and political point of view.
So particularly when you're in opposition, is to build political capital at any opportunity you have. Being a Mr. Nice person is when you are in governance, you're a statesman, you want to create a balance and satisfy everybody, that's good. But once you're in opposition, you're hawkishly focused on building political capital on anything that you do. So if opposing a bill that is immoral is what it takes for people to know that you mean what you say in terms of trying to move the trajectory of growth and development in the country, you don't just talk against the bill, you demonstrate by voting against it. Right. Irrespective of whether, because whether you vote for it or not, it's still going to pass. So the question is, why will you want to vote for it when you know there are things that are not good for the people? I'll give you an example. We get budget where over 55 to 60% of government revenue to go towards wages and salaries. We got a budget where you be say
I'm listening.
Agencies them where APC left. SLPP was rushing for display the huge amount of exploitative salaries where an Escomabi they pay.
Okay, Jesmed, I just hold you there because you preempt, you know, my future questions. We go definitely come to that because that's part of this interview process today. I want to switch you, you know, like I said, we're going to switch gear on and off. We don't lose Kutubu, so basically, you know, the only guest for now. Hopefully, the second man will join the APC honorable. He just called me for let me know that I don't arrive home. I want to look at the Paulo Conte case, not in its specificity, but within the context of the judiciary. And the reason why I say this is because time and again, is every government will come to power get the opportunity for create an independent kind of judiciary in which the institution, I mean the pillars of that institution, they will be very powerful, strong, and independent. But none of them have cared to about because every time when they come, they can just manipulate that part of governance where they will put their own person in. We saw it previously, we saw it before the previous, and we are seeing it now. There are no questions about that. Had the institution itself, had to talk about the judiciary being strong and independent, do you think a case of this nature, you know, involving the former chief of defense will be or will take this kind of cause?
Well, first of all, we have to accept the reality that based on the structure of government itself, the way our government is structured, there is no way we will get an independent judiciary until we change that structure. And I will tell you how we can change it.
Please do.
Now, with respect to the Paulo situation, I see reason for the government to be worried about Paulo having the audacity for going to State House with a loaded pistol. That was a very colossal big mistake. Now, considering Paulo's past, if now somebody would I go call we been in an APC when some dull, non-aggressive kind of person. If now like Suma so, if now like Suma they meet with pistols so go to State House. Now laugh them go laugh self then say but they are come on and not can you understand eh? But Paulo of all people, we don't threaten war if somebody go against your own Limba people. They get the audacity for going to State House with a loaded pistol. That is worth looking into. Let me not lie to you. The process they may be wrong about the process, but they have very much good reason to be concerned. That I can give to them. Now let's come to the judiciary. Why the judiciary is not independent?
Yeah, one question quickly. Let's interject right there before you move on to the judiciary, because that was the original question anyway. But on a point of interest, should it not be about the process? Should it be about what people think, other than a process?
Well, it's not about what people think. So processes are sometimes, like in this case, are defined by the circumstances that prevailed, that led to them. In other words, here is the man who was a military officer. Here is the man who has uttered statements of threat. Here is the man who has drumbeat something about war. You are invited to have an audience with the president, and you have a loaded pistol with you. I don't care what kind of excuse you give. If I put myself in the position of the current government, believe me, I have reason to be concerned. Because let me tell you, to assassinate a president, it doesn't take a military force in some cases. Just like they attempted on Reagan, it just takes one man to go crazy. He says, look, I would rather die. But if I have access to that man, I'll blow his head off, then they kill me, but I know my people will be free. That's how terrorists operate. So nobody knows what was in the mind of Paulo when he went to State House with a pistol. I cannot tell, nor can you tell, but the action itself is wrong.
Okay. Shall we move on to the judiciary, please?
Now, in terms of the judiciary, as you know, I have been a victim. And during that ordeal, I took time to study how the judiciary operates. I spoke with prisoners in prison, took note and able to understand some of the rationale behind their action. Our judiciary, even though there is this fallacy about 3 branches of government, executive, legislature, and the judiciary, but the power structure, especially in the case of Sierra Leone, is centered in the hands of the executive. Now, with respect to the judiciary, the executive has two major control over the executive has 2 major control, influence in power over the judiciary. One, the influence in power of resources. It is the executive branch that determines how much the judiciary gets in terms of budgetary allocation, which is completely wrong. They expect the legislative branch to step in and say, no, this is what we want for the judiciary, just like it happens in the US, it happens in UK, it happens in other democratic institutions. But we have a legislative branch that is weak, feeble, dance to the tune of the executive branch. So the judiciary is left at the mercy of the executive branch. If the Chief Justice drives a Mercedes-Benz or a Lamborghini, whether that Lamborghini is serviced well or have a good driver is dictated by the president. That is one area. The second area, put yourself in the place of the judge. You are in court deliberating on issues, but the security of your life, the security of the life of your wife and your kids are in the hands of the person who is influencing the decisions in that court? Because when you go to bed at night, who provides the security? The executive branch. So whether you want to be corrupt or not, just for the sake of your life and the life of your family, you have reason to be very cautious. So until we change that structure, and my recommendations are as follows. Structure number one, we need to give the independence to the judiciary, the Chief Justice, and his budgetary committee. There has to be a budget department within the Minister within the judiciary system, especially the Chief Justice's own section, to have the power to dictate as to how much they think they need to run the entire judiciary based on how many magistrates you need, how many court police you need, and so on and so forth. And that debate, in collaboration with the Minister of Finance, that debates to be debated at the House of Parliament for ratification. So in other words, the executive branch should not be the one to dictate how much the Chief Justice needs to run his own department. The Chief Justice analyzes it through with his budgetary department, presents it to the House of Parliament, and the Minister of Finance incorporate that in their own annual budget, present it to the House of Parliament for them to debate, and the House of Parliament will now have to be the one to scrutinize to see which portion of that particular request that the Chief Justice is presenting that should be approved or disapproved. The second one, we should remove the prison police and the central prison itself from under the control of the internal ministry. That should be dragged directly under the Chief Justice. What will that do? The prison officers, the prison department should be under the Chief Justice. The police department will be under the executive branch. So when they go out and investigate case, as long as that case has not gone to court, the executive branch has control over it. And since the Constitution has a limit of 3 days, when you arrest somebody, you have to charge them in 3 days. So that curtails the powers of the executive branch to hold anybody beyond 72 hours. Because the Constitution says you cannot detain somebody for more than 3 days. So that controls the powers of the executive branch. But once that matter goes to court, it is the Chief Justice and his own department, the Judiciary, that should have the power to determine whether that person continues to stay in prison or not. But as it is now, the Interior Minister can take a phone call and call the police and say, hey, I instruct the director of prison, they arrest anybody, lock them up in Pademba Road. Or they just take it to court and then throw the person into Pademba Road. Now, if you have a structure where that's why when the Chief Justice has control of his budget and has control of the prison officers, those prison officers will not only provide security for the prisons, they will provide security for the judicial system, security for the magistrates, the judges, and everything, and they should be armed security. It's only in Sierra Leone that the prison department does not have guns. But in every part of the world, prison department has guns. Because when you hold criminals in that place, the criminals have gangsters that can come and invade the prison system to free their members. So that department has to have their own force under the direct control of the Chief Justice. When you do that, then the Chief Justice will have control of his security. The Chief Justice will have control of his budgetary allocation. And then you can talk about independence of the judiciary.
Okay. Beautifully said. Kutubu is back. Let's see whether we can get audio from Kutubu. I mean, this is such an important interview that we'll be missing a significant component if we're not able to forget Mr. Kutubu Koroma on. Kutubu, can you test your audio, please? Because I'm sure you can hear me.
What are they you now?
Now we hear you.
Now we hear you now.
Okay, sir. Now, if I can't hear you, we cannot have a conversation, no dialogue. Now it's sorted. I can hear you now, sir.
All along.
No, it wasn't me, Mr. Kutubu. It was about you. I knew that you could hear me, but we could not hear you. Even the other guest, Jesmed, just said it. That's why I'm saying it's not about me. Anyway, thanks for coming back, and I'm very pleased to have you back because your contribution to tonight's program is very highly needed. we just to talk about the judiciary. And we try to look the judiciary within the context of the Paulo case. The Paulo case, na case where you don't talk about a lot, but not to that way they will want to talk about them. Instead, we want to look at the judiciary, that if the judiciary is independent, and if you're not independent, because you get a historical context, the way you can compare and contrast, if it's not independent, or assuming that it were independent, do you think the case of Paulo, they use them as an example, for they go this kind way, how they go so? We don't lost your audio again, Kutubu.
We don't lost your audio again. In phone the mute. You don't mute and I mute and for himself.
Kutubu. You don't mute.
Actually take.
Oh my God.
Now they hear you now.
Okay, good. We judiciary in SaLone take, a nosedive on April 26, 1968, with the advent of Mr. Shaka Stevens at the political horizon. But even before that, let us go back. We didn't get one of the best judiciaries that we can think of, to the extent, even we don't judge them, now they may go sit down at the Grand Court, now Gambe, when the annual judicial service begin, now judge and they go sit down there for preside over case. We judiciary
in Cameroon too.
Well, good, thank God.
And in the Caribbean, just for add to that. So
well, good, thank God. Well, thank God. We judiciary have been such that when the Secretary General of the United Nations died by a plane crash, that Kamara showed, one of the judges them, that are Justice Bankole Jones, in be one of the people that would be put on a panel for investigate. We all know the judiciary, the role where the judiciary play, where in fact now bring APC into power. We go back, now talk about the one-party system, the Republican bill, how they handle them, how the judiciary handle, and we'll be getting a very effective parliament. One thing I can credit APC, when they in opposition, they're the best people them. Because then what they would do, they would talk from this moral high, rooftop. Everything where originally profound about how democracy go, they believe in it. Now only when they come into power, then in the tree. Now fast forward the discussion. Like I say, April 26, 1968, when Mr. Stevens take over, the then Chief Justice, Mr. Justice E.O.E. Cole, and this time for the Pami book where they can't come out, they put them playing. Here, Shaka Stevens go into understanding, waiting he expect from them. We see that. We also see this when the treason trials came, they go on Mohamed Soifona and others, where every day SI Koroma they make sure they go to court, where na Justice Marcus Cole be the hand of the case. So in other words, SaLone not vanished from the pedestal of grace to the abuse of irrelevance or annihilation. For one thing, when the trajectory of politics changed at SaLone, I am bug. Where Mr. Stevens come up with this Soviet type politics, Chinese type politics, Cuban politics, and all that today, I don't care what happened. The judiciary in any country, in the bastion for the constitutional liberties of the citizens there. When all else fail, now they will get for putting. Now we SaLone as a regardless of whether be the outcome of the Trump in case, regardless of but what happened, Mr. Trump was dragged before a quasi-judicial body. He was dragged there as president. Until we decide, say, we be a nation of laws, where all the components go do back their work, the legislative branch of government do their own, the executive branch do their own, the judiciary do their own. I don't care whose government come. Now, the same thing not go deeper. As you look at the how politics, everything is the president, they say parliament. Here is a very good thing where the opportunity where the parliament lost. Mr. Bio go to parliament, he asked for a state of emergency. Actually.
Exactly.
Okay. This was then before actually I may show Mr. Bio say, hey, guess what? Now we in charge now. Now because lawmaking at the country that the fiat that of any parliament. Now make when the people then they put the government together, taking from the time of Montesquieu or that guy when they call just the secondant, say go down to people like John Locke them. What they do, they make sure so they divide government Because one man will get power, it will be 2 months, and it will hammer everybody in Arekola. So they divide
Okay,
them.
Mr. Kutubu, I think you make a brilliant point, and the only reason we can interject now because we come to that very point there of the state of emergency where I would like some clarifications on. But in the meantime, whilst we still get for come back to the legislative, but there are many things where we understand about that, many things we understand about the judiciary where we talk about. Under this 2 years rule, if I can ask each of you now for grade the SLPP-led government of retired Brigadier His Excellency Julius Maada Bio, just on the judiciary. Mr. Jesmed, Foday, Mami, Suma, what kind of grade will you give them under the judiciary? Because we will come to an average later.
Grade to the judiciary or to the executive branch?
No, to the judiciary, we get for grade them all on them basis. They did the executive will talk about and small. That don't mean say we don't finish, but I think the way una already aware or we already aware how much they've performed. You've come to this program tonight knowing fully well waiting the executive represent, waiting and non waiting the judiciary.
At a ratio of 1 to 10.
1 to 10 or A to F or D minus, A plus, whichever way you want to use it will be understood. Whether not 1 to 10.
10 being the best, 1 being the worst.
That's correct.
I will give the judiciary 2.
Wow. Mr. Kutubu?
To be honest with you, 0. Now 0 I will give them.
Wow, that's quite telling. Okay, this is very interesting, and we knew it was going to be interesting despite what happened from the very beginning. Like I say, with the interplay, they go in and out of the same things and there's many things, what we need for cover, and look how much time we don't spend. Mr. Jesmed, Foday, Mami, Suma, the phraseology or that term way SLPP coin, where we go say get them to power, new direction. Can you deal with that in context of what we understand now? What it exactly mean and how it helped them, if you can please, for catapult them into power over continuation, whichever way APC being called theirs.
Well, you get from
new direction supposed to really mean, and looking at it as it is now, that's a one for let you do then and now.
You got to remember, say, it was clear, say, the people in the yearn for change. Right. Them really don't tire with the kind of mess with them in the under the APC government.
Yep. Now,
on account of that, they really go overwhelmingly in support of the National Grand Coalition. But because of the conspiracy between Koroma and Maada Bio to rig the election during the first round by eliminating all votes of the NGC party wherever the young people in the control, which Bio's team within NEC were able to execute at a very, very good precision, to such an extent that they even extend the rigging to APC, now the Southeast, because Bio, because of this conspiracy, and Koroma was so comfortable that after the first round, where NGC don't go out, between him and Bio, the people will vote for him. He had that complete assurance. That was his entire game plan. But what he did not foresee was the extent at which the Bio government, the Paupa group within SLPP, the extent at which they will go in rigging the election against NGC, to the extent that they will also eliminate some APC votes in Southeast. So when it became to making the choice between the devil that they have just experienced over 10 years and the one that they don't quite know what will come, because most of the youth that will vote not be ever experienced a real SLPP government. Most of them, the Tewe Party, Jan Kababide, they're not being reached voting age yet. So within the past 10 years, most of them don't grow up within the voting age. So in realistic, they don't get the real experience of an SLPP government. So now that they don't see the sufferness under APC, they say, you know what, let we try this man, because the man will want, we not see an the race again. That's not Dr. Kande Koleyum Kela. So this one we don't can now, and this devil we don't see, panican hardship, but not be no say, na inside fire in the go so. Now that they don't can experience so now. Now, if the any opposition party minus APC getting act together, this is not a golden opportunity for take advantage of all the political capital gold mine where they open expose themselves right now between now to 2023. I swear to my living God.
Okay.
There will be a tug of war.
Okay. Just before I pose the same question to Mr. Kutubu Koroma, I just want tell una say the other guest don't just join we now finally, and it happened for be a former APC MP, Honorable Sirajin, Munirr, Rowlings, Mohamed Kamara. Welcome to the program, sir. I'll test your microphone and see if it work.
Yes, thank you very much, Prince.
Well, that's very good. Welcome to the program. Obviously, the program tonight is called Midterm Report. And as the government of Sierra Leone, under the leadership of His Excellency, retired Brigadier Julius Maada Bio, celebrates 2 years in power, it is incumbent upon us, imperative, that we retrospect, look for the past 2 years, waiting and undo, and waiting and inside the direction, inside in the head. So now that report card, midterm report, now we try for look today, but in so doing, we look at other areas than our government, A, the judiciary, B, the legislative, and then C, the executive, and all the other things that we hang around, and 3 main body there. Mr. Kutubu, we just ask about the caption, new direction, where Mr. Jesmed just don't explain and well said. Waiting are your own view about this caption, new direction, then, okay, as opposed to now?
Well, personally, my opinions are not see any new direction, at the same status quo, the same, logic of lawlessness, the same, corruption, the same. But I really not see any new direction, to be honest with you.
So there's not much in there for you, and this
No,
will happen for me. First question where you participate, man. Okutubu, you be want expand because there's nothing in there for you.
I mean, for be honest with you, let we, for example, everybody they say they go on triangle, right? But SLPP has never come and say, yeah, okay, yeah, we had the go on triangle, but guess what? I mean, how about this ostentatious and opulent lifestyles and way guys like analyst by Koroma them they turn around, you see this unexplained wealth, then how we able, how we able reconcile this in our, but more so putting aside the lifestyle and where the guy they live also. What you also see on the part of this government is that we really notice the area where they're supposed for focus actually, where now the main concern, where now bread, butter issue, we know this thing address. They talk about blackout, now the same blackout now get it, the same blackout. Water shortage, now the same water shortage you get now. So then the fundamental question becomes, what is the difference between, what do I don't do now for impact, the lives of people? Because people are complaining about hunger. They're complaining.
Okay.
In fact, to the extent people, they say, in fact, first time, I think they may better small. And to me, now, a very, very unfortunate and sorrowful statement for say, yesterday, it be better than now. It's totally unfortunate. But then,
a lot of people, although they go understand, will be a bit surprised, that this is coming from Kutubu.
The reason why it will come for me, because I'm not an ideologue. I'm not an ideologue. Me not the person. That's what they call green, white, and blue. Now I believe in green, white, and blue.
Okay, and I don't get it. And thanks for the clarification, sir.
Oh yeah.
And the audience, they listen to you. Make I just go on quickly to the newest guest. And I want to pose the same question to you because I suppose coming from the former party, I wonder what thing will be you take on this terminology, new direction. Then, where they asked to now come on a power as opposed to now. What can you say about that, sir? Sirajin, that's for you. New direction, the terminology, new direction. This naive SLPP actually use we capture the minds of the electorate. And with brother Jesmed, just don't talk about the former president, he failed for see something coming. Anyway, the term appear for work because the people that will be the user and did elect them. But 2 years on, how can you describe that term, that caption, the way they use new direction? We don't lost your audio. We don't lost your audio. Put your audio back on. Your audio.
Yeah. You okay? Okay.
Yes, you're okay now. Yeah, thank you.
Yes. Yes. I've been mute me mic because lights they go on and off now, and so when you go and come, you and the other yes. So right now, I tell you, if you watch people, I have to. No, I'm a serious note. I have to use two phones. One.
Okay. Now you're frozen. Okay, we guessed it's frozen. So we go get for left and move on to
we don't miss sample led government. I would think say they had an intention of making things new, but the governance so overwhelmed them that you see governance nothing when you don't just grab overnight, you can't grab them and say you want to do this. It's an institution. It has stages. So if you're not on day, I just can't talk cliche. This is what we are seeing now. Frankly speaking, I'm not talking because me an APC person. Me one person who believes say you always have me say I was very critical of President Koroma, and so I will also be for President Bio. But believe me, anybody they ask, even the ordinary person, even the new and the first-time voter, even they talk about change, new direction, they will tell you that there's nothing absolutely we new, we don't happen. In fact, if anything new, na new backwardness. Because the simple electricity, where President Kuma been fed for there, he say after 3 months, he want for me to get clean electricity in the city. We could not, and there is nothing to show about it for say, SLP don't do this or do that. So maybe then they see the grapple about waiting for the one thing we want for belief say maybe and only maybe say they were not too sure of winning this election. But African politics in the campaign it can bring all kind of grammar, all kind of gimmicks. But when the reality kind of good, hey, I'm not being planned for this. Even the flagship program, winner education. I can tell you some the school and they make even a pilot program, not getting that in it. So you talk to even though you say a young picking. If you picking then a house, when in my mind papa then a house, you sleep angry. Which you expect of girlfriend picking? Me then a house, my mama not in a house. Now me a girlfriend picking, na mama not in a house. But my other brother and sister in a house, the mama in a house, then they sleep angry. Which you expect of me? So for we in the APC, we not do to they expect. But even within the SLPP, they know say this language and bringing camp is not too real. And for make it short, we have two sets of SLPP now. We have the Pauper and the SLPP. And I can tell the SLPP, when at the home base, we've been on do most of the dirty work and bring about the party to governance being marginalized. Then they cry past week. Then at the own Papa and Mama house. But so coming back to the point of say new direction, for me, it's just like a lip service, a cliche, get any substance.
Okay, coming back to the new direction, according to Honorable Sirajin, it's more like of lip service with no substance, and probably the party not be the expect for winning. I sure say it sounds like you try for ascribe that kind speculation. They say I make they do certain things and they were supposed to do, like possibly we prepare. Jesmed, I want to bring this come back to you, the judiciary. I mean, say we go in and out. So we had a state of emergency 1 year ago. There was a state of emergency where the president drew a proclamation where he tried to go ask for a state of emergency, but that state of emergency was turned down. 1 year after, he's gone again and asked for a state of emergency. And this time, the state of emergency, from all indication, is being granted for 1 year. Provide some perspective for we on 1 year ago as to 1 year now, why this one pass? And if he really relevant, waiting at you on a 12 months state of emergency. What do you know about this? And waiting at the legal status based on this 1 year where the president asked for. What do you mean going forward?
Now, the fact that me not even remember about the demand, the request for a state of emergency 1 year ago, it's an indication that there was no emergency at that time. So I see reason why it didn't pass. But in this one, there is absolute need for the state of emergency to be declared because we are in an emergency situation, even though it is a medical emergency. But it requires certain powers that the president needed to be able to command certain things that are beyond the guidelines of the Constitution. But whether that state of emergency require it to be 12 months, it's another thing. That I completely and vehemently oppose to it. And the reason why they even say 12 months, from all indication, is probably because now the limit someone the Constitution asks for. Maybe if the Constitution will say 2 years, this parliament here, so then for your rubber stamp and boom, boom. But this is what the powers mean within, this is what the Constitution says about the state of emergency. When an imminent situation don't occur, we require some special powers where the president needs for prevent the nation from facing that kind of a risk, like war or something like this in this situation now. A state of emergency, they give the president the powers for suspend any law, for change any law, for arrest anybody at any time without ask any question, for detain anybody, for deport any non-citizen of Sierra Leone, no tribunal and no justice, no judicial, no for questioning. Now, very powerful, powerful. In fact, the laws them under the powers them under the state of emergency is as equal to a dictator government, except that this state of emergency says the only area where the president cannot touch is the Constitution. You cannot change the Constitution. But under the state of emergency, there is limitations as to how you will execute that state of emergency. Now, if Parliament they under session, the president get the powers for declare a state of emergency for within 7 days. Within that 7 days, you need to get Parliament approval or disapproval. There is a reason for that. Because the framers of the Constitution will say they still need the people's voice for examining whether the president get the right to assume such powers, because it's too extensive powers. But if Parliament they out of session, that can extend up to 21 days. But in this case, the Parliament they under session, now that make them rush out for Karangona Parliament for ratification or lack thereof. Which means if you get a request for 12 months, the Parliament get the power for saying, no, we know they approve 12 months, they approve 1 month, they approve 2 months, they approve 3 months. The second element of that particular request says the rules and the procedures that are to be adopted or declared by the president for exercise that power day. You know, gets no obligation for can go to Parliament, contrary to waiting people in the belief. You know, no obligation for can go to Parliament. But the parliamentarians me don't know what to make them go sign that deal there with the devil. Monday, they don't demonstrate, say them thirsty for power. You go give them power. You say, I go make a deal with you, know that power day before you exercise and come back to Parliament. And the Constitution not request them.
Okay, Mr. Mami Suma, hold your thoughts right there. While before I come back to Mr. Koroma, Mr. Mohamed Kutubu Koroma, let me go to Sirajin because you have sat in the house there. You know what putting a standing orders. You know some of these rules, if not all, because you can't have the brain for all, I suppose. But 1 year ago, the president began on a very parliament day on the basis of rape, because it may sound like an emergency if my memory serves me well, for ask for a state of emergency to be declared. At the time, then the parliament turned that down. 1 year after, that we talk about now, because of a public health emergency, the president declare or make a proclamation for a state of emergency. But like the brother just said, the framers then get at the back of their mind say, there is no one above the law. So even though you can proclaim, of course, and when you proclaim, it's still valid, but there is a house where you can do the checks and balance for either approve or deny. But in the meantime, when you don't proclaim, it still get effect until the house can deny or disprove. 1 year on, Honorable Sirajin, the government declare we now be under a state of emergency because of the public health emergency. From a political, economical, and social point of view, will you provide some perspective for we on this particular state of emergency? I want to we look then, everything we do now in context of then and now, because remember, the judgment is based on a 2-year leadership in governance. So please provide some perspective for we, please, if you will.
Okay. Thank you very much, Prince. You just remind me of your organization name, Then and Now.
Thank you.
Then was, yes, it has to do with rape. We vehemently stood by then, and Parliament was being refurbished. So we meet now Bank of Sierra Leone, and we met several times there, and people just say we want to be difficult. We did against rape. You see, that's another thing where I think we have problems.
All right, I think we guessed frozen. So we go move on to Kutubu, Mr. Kutubu Koroma, with the same question. Mr. Kutubu Koroma, if you are there and you hear really loud and clear.
Yes, I think we don't come back. Yes.
Okay.
The problem we'll get a lot of civil society then when some people in the diaspora, not Salonians or not say diaspora, when people from the Western world cough, they sneeze, then catch the cold. When they talk about rape, then come Herald and I make them so noisy that when we as parliamentarians, when I was there, then the talk say, una allow we as parliamentarians, let we make laws. We see they can declare a state of emergency, not call for. But City Tunis now, when a speaker of ECOWAS Parliament rushed and criminally presented a certificate to President Bio, will not be exist because we're not on the debate. We are going to even add to the laws for say, you as a member of parliament, you as a councillor, you as a chief, then call you for go beg for a rape case, you also get a case. So we're going to make the law so stringent that we don't even need a state of emergency for that. The first state of emergency came, then give them the certificate, but again, we said it can go nowhere. Now that was then. And so in no time, he repealed the state of emergency because as we tell us, people will lobby say this year, so people are for one thing in governance, I can always say, sometimes in Africa and SaLone, I can always say, maybe we need to practice Africacy, the African version of democracy. The West democracy might not even suit us because we don't have the structures. The instruments are not there, but we can practice and sponsor in the process we call Africacy. But most time, one for copy verbatim, waiting available in the Western world when we don't have the structures. So something like that's happened in that rape waiting call. And waiting happened, the people already even saying they talk about the rape with the whole. And if the number is also infinitesimal for make you call a state of emergency. Let's leave that. You know, we can go through. And like a dog, we get a tail between in legs, then come back and repeal them. Okay, or then end them. This one, of course, I would support that say, because of the lessons and the bitter lessons so we don't get from Ebola, it goes without saying, say, there should be a state of emergency. But again, up till now, we even get some cases where they say, then the test for proof say, well, after the period, then positive or so, and we then go share everything. Other countries, we get deaths, over 50, 100, 1,000. They're not declare 1 year state of emergency. And we keep saying, if you see politics, if you practice reports, politics of truth, SaLone go better. But more often than not, people enjoy they make things away if you say they're suitable for them, for the empathy. I'll tell you, even if APC they are now against this SOE, the SAP will see it and say, oh, any post will say a fine thing. But frankly speaking, and somebody called me attention to the act, the provision and the constitution. I think there is a provision for 12 months, but you say up to 12 months, meaning say, it can ask for a month, or 2 months, 3 months, and it can come back. But waiting obtain that it came for 1 year, 12 months, but the members of parliament needed to discuss this. I can tell you, if you look at Honorable KKY, Yom Kela, it came out and said the Honorable, the Chief, the Attorney General deceived Parliament. Now they were to go back on the 7th and further discuss the ramifications of this. Now they come top say the lockdown day, and so now they could not. Now they not talk say now they not agree like say the state of emergency don't exist. So therefore even Parliament is not meeting. So they were deceived and they are not happy because I've been removed. So until we come back to Judiciary, we will talk about Judiciary. Okay, there you voice the common prince.
Yes, because I've been one, you take a cue from them, want to go and pose the same question, Mr. Koroma, if you hear me, on the state of emergency. Will you provide your own view about the state of emergency, this 12 months I passed now Parliament? Basically, you view about the state of emergency.
Thank you very much. I almost want to accuse this last speaker of dishonesty, but God make he help himself halfway. The crisis where we go to today in SaLone again, under discussion, APC making, they go and deliberately, and this is where the other day I take a lot of issues with Dr. Bly content, and I go always continue for take issue with them.
Exactly. Say that again.
Like I say, this 1991 constitution, then they say I take strong issue with Dr. Bly content, and I go continue for take issue with them. Because guys like Dr. Bly content, in as much as they get the education, but fundamentally they're very dishonest.
Very dishonest.
Morally bankrupt.
Yes.
And very self-centered. Guys like that, they're not good. When you take the education away from Dr. Bly content, it's nothing.
Nothing.
It's nothing. This 1991 constitution will not be an albatross on Dr. Bly content in pilot and a parliament. So all of them say so. Then this MP will just can't also former MP himself actually by extension will accuse them of dishonesty and unpatriotism. This very MP, I believe, say he didn't have parliament, where honest by Koroma, roughshod over with constitution at Economist. They remove the majority leader. Then in a parliament, they don't object to that. They remove Bundu, Ibrahim Bundu. You know very well say in a representative democracy, on a democracy where they get separation of powers, no way, no way, honest by Koroma, go spread inside.
Okay, Mr. Komala, I want you right there. I want to take you back to the question, but the thing where quickly, because this is a direct accusation, and it's good that you get the man himself here and probably be able to shed light on that. Honorable Munirr, you're waiting to say.
Let me help him.
Quickly, just 30 seconds, 1 minute, please.
Yes. I would have loved for Eric Kutubu, where they say they get a panel, where they talk saying where when I get for a panel, I did a research, I did a background of you and Jesmed and my other friend, So like for me, you can't talk say I was in parliament, you don't even know me. I was one of the most critical person of finance by Koroma. I mean, I want post you talk say the problem we'll get right now with Maada Bio and it's Koroma left him. Because allow that constitution way Justice Kawan for making so I was never in parliament. I just do Totimon and Parliament Kampulu. Me na one post we stand against President Koroma for the removal of Sam Sumana. I stood against more time. So if you don't know me, you for
if you not in the parliament, me apologize.
There's a list of things where you can lay na Kutubu in table, but I guess say Kutubu don't get them, and I hope say Kutubu not.
Yeah, so I just want to forget that.
Because you na APC person, so generally una all get the cardinal scene. Is that convincing enough, Mr. Kutubu, what he's just said, so you can go forward with the question where we ask you?
Thank you. Like you said, this 1991 constitution we're going to parliament so where Dr. Blai Conte piloted it became a law. Now the albatross around the judicial neck. Okay. And I can tell you with any degree of certainty, then do because they not also been expected they will come up on power.
Mm-hmm.
So this, oh yes.
And not only that, for buttress that you pointed,
yes, sir.
During the time they framed that constitution, Abulai Conte was vice president. He was seeing himself to being the head of the executive branch. Yes. So he makes sure say the constitution accords so much power to the executive branch and create loopholes where the executive branch go able to use.
Exactly. And it's by Koroma use.
Exactly.
So the climate of blame now, I mean, if I not even now move away from the blame, what should they do now? Where do we go from here? What you need for do? What you need for do?
Okay, Kutubu, we will take that question. We will take that question there and go forward. But I want you to talk quickly on the national emergency, the state of emergency. I want your view, please, because you know, say you're very prominent in social media. What are your view on this national emergency?
Okay, as far as me concerned, I see a lot of egregious violation of constitutional liberties in under. I see a whole lot. For example, if this president use any of the that's what they call habeas corpus, nobody not going to be entitled to it. That's not even one thing. Andy. John the Mr. Ahmed, anything they go do to you under this
emergency.
Okay, so therefore, the long and short of it is, I not believe.
Okay, thank you very much for that. I want to move to something else quickly, so we're able for cover time, quickly, because again we DBN. And this not the COI. And gentlemen, again, like I say, a lot of what we are doing here tonight is retrospecting 2 years ago and 2 years now. So 1 year ago, the COI came into being, but even before it was born, it been very, very controversial. The All People's Congress will appear for this at the end of the week. Sweste, they not go accept them and the rest of it, but they made a case out of it, saying that it lacked the basic principles where the Constitution speak in its behalf. So they bring new rules, which was introduced by the foreign judges or justices that were brought into the country. But we know say the Constitution be clear because the Constitution tangible, we sabia, we can touch them, is codified. So we know say under section 150, the rules of court committee says that they must sit and lay down the rules of engagement or the rules of evidence. And none of this happened then. And then the party where they feel the brunt of it, or was supposed to feel the brunt of it, oppose it on a constitutional basis. However, the COI went forward, and we know what didn't happen. I think that was on March 24th, when effectively that body they came to an end as they submit their report to the president, His Excellency, retired Brigadier Julius Maada Bio, from which we know, say, I believe on top of me head, 110 people were investigated, 84 or 86 were indicted, 26 or 24 were exonerated. Fambule, Mawale, we touch on this little bit. Kutubu, I will start with this, the COI, with you. Waiting on your view on the COI, the bringing in of foreign judges for can look into this case, the Constitution, which you've been very, very critical about, but still nothing we not get an alternative. And then at the very end, the presentation, the indictment of 86 people and the exoneration of 24 or so. Waiting on your view about this constitutional, this COI.
Okay, well, I see you talk about bringing foreign judges. Waiting happen so. Now, just a testimony of the fact, see, with Judiciary, it also rotten to the core that nobody know the way you trust exponential corruption and not take hold of the place, so you don't go trust nobody, and may justice stay for sale to the highest bidder. So then that the reason. So this all now the factors and that. But they believe say any of them guy that you get a name case and they not no commodity. We can take the case of Minkailu Mansare, which in them Regina Fin the Panda how you get. Then I even had an example. But the fact of the matter is, Commission of Inquiry, not a strange thing, and some of we go back to history. 1962, Mitch Magai Brigham, 1967, Josh Smith Brigham, even Ernest by Koma Brigham. So the thing is, we get for left for lemon drop and cherry pick. All this now because of bad laws, so the way people then can
but talking about the historical context there under the Magais and what have you, although you could draw parallels, but at the same time, Kutubu, then the judiciary, when you call certain names them who were justices, you know that the judiciary had respect, had a larger degree of independence as compared to now.
Yes, I will give you the names. You take then turn away some of we no SaLone judiciary. You call names like Sasala Kobenka Koka. You call names like S.P. Jones. You call names like Richard Wright Mark. You call names like Emil Fashul Luke. You call names like Singer Bates. I can give you a host of names. Those who are men will be committed to the canon of that that profession. Like again, I go back to this argument. The trajectory of justice changed at SaLone on Friday, April 26, 1968, with the advent of you good old friend Shaka Pobin Stevens. Which it changed everything, and they can justice where they take place in the Soviet Union, now in Cuba, China, North Korea, and all them that they can bring there. So this is what we need for the time we say no, we need a system of governance, or we need a judiciary, because they can continue to argue the judiciary and the bastion for the constitutional liberties of every citizen. When all Israel now they will get for rely on, like even this I call them this state of emergency now. We will not get good system. I will go challenge President Bio. You're not going to challenge him. But I can give you a counter. When we get good judiciary, APC be challenge Albert Magai. People that will study history. Now make we for go back to history. The one-party system, the Republican bill. If I'm on that day, they come to power because we get good judiciary. So Lord, be honest with you, bro. Now the bad laws so APC bring, because they own party when they can, they not go again. They be there now and never. Now they try to now forever. More time.
So again, just quickly back to the question: how you see the COI, the indictment, them, and what do you see going forward?
Well, let the thing take in course. If they say, I mean, these guys, they live outside the emolument, so they get. And remember, now foreign people in Bringo, remember this. So I'm not expecting we will begin to question the integrity. If I one of them judge with them at Guba, I don't read extensively about that. Now one of the foremost judges in Ghana. But again, APC now people will believe in propaganda. Everything in the propaganda is because they base a full of functional warehouse of functional illiterates instead of ignoramus system. We're fundamentally lacking in intellectual capacity for rationalize anything. Everything they tell you they can ipso facto. Now that's me.
Okay, thank you very much for that. I want to pose the same question to you, Honorable Sirajin, in a different way. Because now you party and people like you, then at the end of the whip, which is before the CO went to Parliament, okay, of course you oppose them. One, people are suspect for selfish reasons. Two, you try to back that up with legitimate reasons, which is or was in violation of a section in the Constitution, which we call Section 150. And the way they manipulate them, according to you, when they go Parliament, which is Parliament be supposed to go on a recess when this bill was introduced, the COI, the instruments of the COI were introduced to Parliament. So Parliament be meant to be on recess or go on recess. And the rules of Parliament, SO something, I think 19 or whatever, when this bill be introduced then, or it says, if after 21 days, and imagine this, and you will correct us if we are wrong here. Sirajin, are you there? Okay, we lost them briefly, but I will just continue with the question because I can easily switch them back to we next panelist, which is 21 days. If nobody not objects to a bill which is introduced in Parliament, then of course that bill becomes effectively a law. So waiting APC, we understand they say is that's how this bill of the COI, the instruments of the COI became a law. Do you have any grievances with that? Waiting again, now your own view about the way out and waka with this COI thing, where 1 year ago the president commissioned them, and now 1 year after, as we talk today, the people effectively don't end their work, they don't make a submission to the president, and the whole nation they see, we wait and see how we get for play out. How you see the process? Are you aggrieved by the process? It's been 1 year.
Hello?
Yes, Sirajin, you're live.
Yes, okay. The line being there. Actually, if I get for answer this question, guesswork, because the line been look too bad when you
I can reframe and quickly, 30 seconds. You hear me?
Yes.
In 30 seconds, I can reframe the question. You hear me?
Yeah, me, they hear you.
Yes, I think say they get issues
Right,
with the audio. So quickly, Sirajin, I believe say they hear me. The question here is, from the beginning, you party where you have been honorable member of, you've been in a parliament, be opposed to this COI, the introduction of these elements or instruments of the COI. However, they managed for send on a parliament where you sat once upon a time. They send a day. But when they send a day, according to the APC, now when parliament been there on recess, and there's an understanding, some rules, that when parliament day on recess, you can't send them things the day, because if you send them under 21 days, if nobody not object to something when they send a parliament, then of course, parliament will get for pass them as a law. And this is how the COI, we don't lost them. Okay, Jesmed, the COI,
okay,
yeah. So you understand that now? You want to answer that?
No, the same thing happened, but let me try. At the ETOR on COI,
Okay.
parliament talk, I think say it has to say it is something on that. No, so
yeah.
But let me speak broadly on that. When I was in parliament, when it was brought up, I say the terms of reference for the COI, then for expand them, as we all agree, for make it not just be limited to the GTTL, the government national team reports. And reason being that 11 out of the 13 people who signed that report were already given jobs, high profile jobs by President Bio. And it goes without saying that the Minister of Lands, Naina, been the secretary. And now for tell you say that thing was doctored. We had Musa Tarali, who served as Minister of Finance, the Minister of Lands, and Dennis Sandy, who served as Minister of Lands, and today they serve. But from but under Anescoma, in name not come up for discuss the report, the COI. And so we've been talking, say, let them open the game more. May they allow parliamentarians, and along with we discuss the issue more and give them better relevance and broader powers. But it was not, because they may not tailor them in a way where they want them for this. So I'm not surprised that people like Musa Tarali, we will get in your own term, will get the highest number of land cases in the country, dubious one to appear at the COI. So that tells you that the
Okay, thank you very much, Honorable Sirajin. Mr. Jesmed, same question to you, but how you see or observe this entire process from the GTTI report, out of which was born the instruments of the COI, which was sent to Parliament, the mannerisms used for let be sent to Parliament, the questions here posed.
I don't know if to the
Honorable, how you see them. Please expand with knowledge on this particular thing. Yes, Sirajin, I just move to the next guest.
How me see the COI?
Yeah, okay. In 30 seconds, will you just wrap them up how you see the COI? I mean, they actually pose the question. In 30 seconds, how you see the COI, please.
Now, for tell Kutubu left off. let forfeit me mic now. Kutubu forfeit me mic, so make you know. I'm just joking. But on a serious note, we think say the thing may get gallop. Me now one person we supported the commission of inquiry and the three commissions. But we say
right, Sirajin, we'll get for nephew day. Jesmed, take the floor, please. You already get a question.
Oh, sorry, this like but the long and short of it, that's the first time. Not to the first to get a COI.
We got Jesmed on the floor.
President Nkrumah, when he take power, set up a COI, and it started with one Gambian judge, but they started with even Alpha on the Sababu project. But how come they reach a point that they not continue with them? Me not been too comfortable with that. Me, I know they with anybody who been the serve now government and not work for government all that period. So if there is anything for let somebody account for in stewardship, and when it is done thoroughly.
Sirajin, if you hear me, we move to the next panelist. Jesmed, you already, Mr. Mami Suma, you already get a question. We want your view, of course, from the GTTI, which constitutes the COI, the instruments of the COI, how it passed, the indictment of 86 people, the exoneration of almost another 24 plus. What are your view about this entire process, please?
Well, me na one way been the advocate for the establishment of a commission of inquiry, and I sent out several social opinion on social media on that particular subject. However, I've been wary about the possibility that it will be politicized. And indeed, my fears came through. Then don't politicize the entire process. This will have been one way Maada Bio will set up a legacy will forever, ever be in favor through the sands of history. But unfortunately, a politicized from the transition document itself, the government transition document, the way they do them, just like the last speaker mentioned, certain individuals where they're all culpable for being involved in corrupting the system, because then are people that will be aligned with them on the side, undermining the government in the south, then they finance and bankroll the opposition. So now the attendees for can reward them, and you say they call for commission of inquiry, and then people and they want say you want do commission of inquiry for the entire country, but then people and they because they align with you, you know, include them. The second side with them politicize them. Now because of that commission of inquiry, make APC the handicap right now. And APC leadership, as long as an Koroma and Usmani Asane, they lead APC. APC will never raise its head to victory in this country. Because as long as then they fear the powers where the president gets, where he can use that commission of inquiry against them. So the commission of inquiry is now used as a political stick over the heads of the leadership of APC. We make APC where we all know, like Kutubu mentioned earlier, where they're very strong when you come to opposition, and you can get no better party where they oppose the ruling party, where they really massively go against the ruling party than APC. But this current APC is as dead, as dormant as nothing. Party cry no more like cry babies, because the commission of inquiry has been politicized.
Okay.
Unfortunately, we know they get much or nothing out of the commission of inquiry, now a water wash.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you very much for that. Let me move on to something else very significant. And Jesmed, this they go back to you. I will start with you. And the question here is, the current economy, what is it based on? And I also will appreciate if you would touch on the challenges which the current economy they go through right now?
This now is subject we need at least 1 hour discussion between me and you two and delve into all the numbers. So
absolutely, if you can make this short and sweet, I've been on telling you from the beginning of the program.
Yeah, so
we definitely
because of time,
get into these specifics. Yeah,
because of time.
Yeah,
I can't delve into too much stuff.
Sure.
But the most important thing we'll go for, remember, the problem of liquidity. Now, they affect the economy right now. That is, there is not enough money going around in circulation. Foreign investors, they're very wary about the direction of the government. So they're hesitant for bringing the money for can invest. Unfortunately, because of the high rate of inflation, the high rate of the interest rate, no bank nor gets the incentive for letting them give loan where they last for 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 years. And if somebody want to build factory, not to overnight, if they take 2, 3, 4, 5 years for let that factory there for begin operate, produce, and able for get something out of them. The second thing is the fact that we economy is highly, highly indebted, meaning that we debt ratio as against our gross domestic product is very high. So when the government day, year after year, and they live off borrowing more money, and then they live above their means to an extent that the wages and salary bill of the government revenue is over 55%. If you add the amount they also use for service existing debt, where an Koroma in government take over the past 10 years, plus the kind debt where themselves don't add. So you go observe, say, over 80 to 85% of government revenue, they go towards wages and salary and servicing of debt. The remaining way they left.
I will have to be there because of time factor, because I want to pose the same question to the other panelists then. But just before I left you, I mean, there are multiple problems, you know, with the economy, and at then we begin for explain so. But part of that, you know, just before I go to the next guest, could it be because of the kind goods then where we the import, where we will refer to as capital goods, and sometimes the goods then where we the export, when are we primary goods then where we the export, and then the loss of cost, the way the goods cost. Let me say one of the primary goods where we export now iron ore. So if the price of iron ore drops, the economy is susceptible to a shock, isn't it?
No, well, the problem is not capital goods. We're not importing enough capital goods at all. In fact, when you talk about capital goods, importation of capital goods, it helps for give engine to the economy for growth. I wish that capital goods would import. Now, majority of what they import now consumer goods.
Right. Okay.
And
so
consumer goods include, in this case, things that we can produce now SaLone. But because the incentive not there for let people invest in any sector, then the people where they take loan from bank, they just for turn and move and more for bring goods and come back and sell it to the people.
No. When I say capital goods, I mean talk about what we they import as capital goods, but you say consumables, which I agree with. But I mean they refer to the importation of capital goods and then the exportation of your own primary goods, i.e., diamond and iron ore. So when the price does fall in the international market, where economy is definitely susceptible to shock. That's what I was saying. But I think you made your point clear, and you're absolutely right. We need them for another day. Honorable Sirajin, if you are still there, because your audio your video look frozen. I'm not sure whether they get to it. And if you do, the same question I want to pose to you as to waiting with economy based on, sir. What is it based on? And what are the current challenges about the economy right now in Sierra Leone as we speak? Sirajin, are you there, sir?
Yes, I get you, sir. One, I think Jesmed talk about capital goods where we know they bring come in. And this problem we don't grapple with them for a very, very long time. That even the rest so-called staple food, we're not able to grow them. And there is a saying that any country where they on the verge for develop, if we're able to grow in food, if you're able to grow in food, I'm saying not start for doing anything else. When you look at which they put rice subsidy, it's really shameful that we're able to grow rice with all the fertilizer we'll get, And but another thing too is that there were existing contracts of mining contracts, especially SaLone mining in Alosal. I think say it been very commonsensical for making the Minister of Mines say instead of you just terminate this contract, you renegotiate. If we're not getting that, they can go out. We're not going to get anything for attract to the dollar. We know it happened. I don't want to go to history, Kutubu and like history, but we don't agree say history not been good for we at all. Some of us never smile at some of this history, especially for make them withdraw. Because we have for host AU, we get certain money will be pegged with the British pound, we can withdraw, and then Leone was floated. Totally with the grab will become able to send not again for make we value with Leone, and that's so now. If we never send rutile out, we never send bauxite out, iron or gold, and then but again send them out to never see they translate to the people. The Minister of Finance before he take power, saying 3 months time, he will reduce the dollar. He meets at 7.5. He said he go put under, will not be no much put under. But today the dollar is over 1 million. And waiting at the team, not to rocket science or grammar for begin to say we do this, we do that. It is so practical that if you not get what you send out, the money not will get any value. And that's where we are at. And so talking about the economy, even for remove the dollar boys on the streets, I always support that. But the method at this point is wrong because how the dollar boy and they get the money? They're from the banks. The guys, the commercial man, and they get the money for change. I can
you rather deal with the banks because now then they provide the money to the street vendors instead of you move the street vendors, it's easier for them to stop the bank or look into the bank. You also say something about the mining contracts where government effectively is accusing your government at the time of having signed bad faith deals. Now you make them in for stop them deal and therefore review them deals them. But we will talk about this another time. But this was the trend behind the suspension of licenses or revoking of licenses. I want to go to Mr. Kutubu quickly on the same question, but in a different way. The government of Sierra Leone, under the leadership of His Excellency, retired Brigadier Julius Maada Bio, Famulem, I get two more questions and then we will end this program. I can see we far exhausted the program. Very interesting program, but 2 more questions and the program comes to an end. Mr. Kutubu Koroma, this goes to you, that the SLPP, they promised a strong and resilient economy upon the assumption of power. The president did admit that they met a near broken or near bankrupt economy, but then promised, for spice them up, then promised for have a strong and resilient economy. Yep. Unfortunately, 2 years on, we are seeing the steady worsening of the economy. Growth is slowing. Business confidence is dipping or going down. The depreciation of the leones, of course, is been the talk for like 2 years. And will you say that these things that I've just outlined are as a consequence of not running the economy efficiently or inefficiently? How will you categorize this, please? Mr. Kutubu Koroma.
Thank you. The handling of the economy is bad, for one thing. Then they run a big bureaucracy, big, large bureaucracy. We're very uncalled for. If you can't talk, say, the economy where you meet, not strong, common sense for say, you get for shrink I didn't call them the bureaucracy way they run. No way expenditure go overtake income. And even one landed. You get too much. And if you observe, it is just salary. the other infrastructures, the way they for focus on, they are not. Even this education way, the flagship, it don't become a colossal failure because again, wrong priorities. Who's there for spending money? So the president really need for do something serious. He need for shrink. He really need for shrink the bureaucracy. It's too large. It's too large, and that they take a lot of the money say today. So I think so that Nayanda first will start. If he able, bring the other column, he able hold them down to the barest minimum. What do they do? All the cabinet ministers there, deputy ministers there, pay them all there, even the ambassadors, some president they will really not need a diplomatic post there because not of any use. So if you say Nayanda first study, they don't make the mistake. The bureaucracy, now they force. So everything that they do, they hold their number, they for them, they hold it. That's what me look at more.
Okay. Thank you very much for that, Mr. Jesmed, for the Mami Suma. Should it take 2 years or more for let you change the fundamentals of an economy?
With respect to the
basis of the economy, maybe the right word would be the basis, not the fundamentals, but the basis, because I'm speaking directly about Sierra Leone and its economy. And 2 years on, should it take the government 2 years to change the basis of the economy?
Yes, because economic policies usually they take a gradual. It take into effect gradually. They take into effect immediately. Sometimes they will take 3 months, 6 months before you begin to see the effect of the policies the way they implement now. And by the time that effect then changes, then they will begin to show trajectory in the right direction. Maybe it could not go to 1 year. But with respect to, especially when you consider the kind of economy where this government inherits, they inherit an economy where they under recession. Whether we accept it or not, it was under recession. It was so bad that if the government being continue under APC, wallahi billahi, the situation will be worse past this.
Hello.
For the worst past this. But this government been get a lot of opportunities them. They miss the opportunities them. They not take advantage of the opportunities and they then take we back into the lion's den, IMF and World Bank. Instead of then look at the entire government expenditure, slash them, take away fraud, waste, and abuse. Plug all them loopholes that will not exist. Instead, the government unplugs more holes because they want for dance not to the concern of the people of Sierra Leone, but for satisfy the political pundits that will lead them into power. So then sacrifice the people in future for satisfy political pundits. By assigning people to positions where not relevant to developing the economy of our country. They increase the debt rate. They increase the deficit. They increase the current account deficit. They increase the budgetary deficit. They increase the number of debts. So them when they talk say, then they make changes, then they're not worry about the microeconomic aspect of the economy. They want to focus on the macro. Well, if you focus on the macro, let's look at the figures on the macro. Inflation is up. Well, they not get some small control on inflation. That I can give that to them. But the devaluation of the currency is devalued over 30% since they take over. The poverty rate, it don't increase from 57% to 64.8%. This is a multi-dimensional poverty ratio where they use for measure. It don't increase to 64.8%. the unemployment rate don't increase. But if that na the thing they focus on for 2-3 years, and then indicators then still in the go worst, then what are you talking about macroeconomic?
Absolutely, I think you made a
policy?
brilliant point there. And then Fambulem, if you not check the IMF reports, if you not check the ECF reports, if you not check World Bank reports, you go see all of these indicators. Then they, as outlined by Jesmed, these are just facts. They are there for you to see. Kutubu, I want to ask you a similar question, but in a different sort of kind of tick. The government seem for don't try almost everything in the book. I think we don't lost Kutubu. I think.
Well, Adia, ask me the question, Adia.
Yeah, absolutely, of course. The government seem for don't try almost everything. Value addition, they try for improve the services sector. They don't tell me about agriculture. We see some formation in which we see people in the harvest rest, they put inside bag for create patriotic kind of feeling with flag or the name Sierra Leone Panam. How sustainable are these? Is it just a dip in a frying pan, or are these sustainable measures? Because it seems like policies of this nature, they are not far-fetched and they're not kind of sustainable. And I say this because we've seen this time and time and again that it's just a quick fix solution, and in no time it's about something else. Because I don't even know what's going on with the rice. One moment it seems like with a harvest and produce with your rice, at least not for the entire nation, but for certain sector. And then the next moment you are seeing donor rest, they come in where they get so much publicity. Former Honorable, will you break this down for the audience so we understand exactly what it is? Harvesting with your rest, Bondapi rice project, and the other rice project then, and they talk about the agricultural process where if you look at the manifesto of the Sierra Leone People's Party, wonderfully put, wonderful. But on the ground, is it working? Is it practical, sir?
Okay, before I touch on that point, let me just buttress a point we give to Jesmed about if why the SAP government for the if not 2 years too boku for the is small for them. Me, I think say any responsible opposition, once you're in opposition, you get a shadow government. You know who is the minister of finance.
You're supposed to get a shadow government, but we'll not get them.
Yeah, that's very good. So if you think say because JJ Safabi know, let's say he get for the minister of finance. So whenever he came on air, he already attacked on the economy. He go fix this in 3 months, go fix that in 3 months. So I think say it not just be a lip service. They were there prepared, say we're gonna take governance, and when we take governance, this is what we're gonna do. 3 months, I go forgive them. 6 months too, I might forgive them. But when you go to 1 year, you know, would make any turnaround, then I think say for government. That means it been just they make the other points of like we just may say that President Bio is inherit the worst economy. Then if I thought we have a responsible president and a leader, you inherited a worse economy. But inside 6 months, this president made several trips. And if you calculate how much one trip they cost, you know, either it's a clueless that you don't know waiting for or you know even at that place. Because for making she inherited a so bad an economy, quote unquote, just made, you know, that means nothing no day. And they wonder why this man for make several trips at the expense of the national cake. And I agree with him, you know, say back we get a lot of overhead salary, the wage and which they call it too much per week that I don't need for go back to that. But talking about the rice production, I want for let people and take SaLone people and very serious. You see, when it comes, you see, any good government, when they say a stable country, any country ready for develop, in fact, if for grow your own stable food, not to if for begin negotiate. And there are 5 basic needs that move not need for the begin top and campaign set. You talk about food, clothing, shelter, housing, education, and health. Well, more often than not, when they say campaign country, so they see when they begin, they first for even say, oh, they don't talk about that place now, Dondoma, but this street, I don't forget, place Tomabo. will get the other side of it. We have no reason, believe me, and Prince, we have no reason for make we import one seed of rice. In fact, SaLone for be an exporter of rice. Israel get 57% land in a desert.
But I'll just challenge you on that quickly. I have seen policy report from your party where say the soil is acidic, so therefore not good for rice growing. So it seems like there's a contradiction there.
But again, this is what we are saying. Me, I go to my village yesterday. I did try for grow cashew and sorghum because Brig we want sorghum. We don't get I don't go make arrangement like for 2-mile radius for grow just for a start. The problem between a SaLone, it's like where them time in where them say na rest of sabi. People then go eat fufu, eat cassava, we open the upland, we eat kondo bala, we eat super food, but because we not eat rice, we do we say we not cook today. Me feel say over time that mentality should have wiped off our heads. So for some travel far and wide, they come back.
And then England for still very, very much alive today. I mean, when they come to the end of the program, I just want to rush through some questions quickly. Mr. Jesmed, do you think it's fair that 2 years on, the party in power should continue blaming the past government when things go wrong? Do you think it's a fair thing to do?
No. They have no reason, no excuse anymore for continue for blame the past government. Within the first 1 year, 2 years, I can understand. But after 2 years, you have not changed the trajectory of growth. The indicators have not changed. And where you get a lot of lower hanging fruit for you to capitalize on, as I've been trying to say the other time, you get direct diaspora investment where you can cultivate, you will bring in millions of dollars into Sierra Leone in terms of investment for create liquidity in the economy. They capitalize on that because the people are working able to push that when are people like me, then they see we like opposition. Even as I speak, the current crisis they're on right now, we get suggestions and for offer in terms of we get connections that we can bring to bear for help and assist the government. No, they will not listen to you because they want people to normal, then jump, then assume the role and responsibility of government, go with charity, this and that. Government take the 9.5 million, 2 million where they take from the budget, 7.5 million World Bank give them, then sit down on a like APC bin do, then shape among themselves and reach themselves, then they left the rest of the population, the struggle for able to save the emergency situation. That is exactly what APC did. And I would not be surprised if the RSF one take that same route way. Because certain things and they were supposed to don't do right now, where they still not do nothing yet. And this crisis here, who they talk about, so this emergency, Now picking to right, you say don't be 10 people them. We they get people in the diner in their hundreds by day inside America. We get all the sophisticated stuff then. Plenty people inside SaLone right now, we get corona, yeah. But there is no way you will know until you do testing. If they not do testing, they're not gonna know. And so the thing will continue for spread until the day we go spark people in the beginning for don't treat like I've been happy Ebola time. Now tell them go realize say, oh, this thing has reached a situation where it passed the emergency will be anticipated. Not because of the fact that say the emergency cannot be contained. It's because of the lackadaisical way the government they handle the situation. And I know I'm going to that one. But in terms of the economy,
we'll save that for our next.
I want to say this why I so. Because usually when you talk about the economy, I go want if you bring me on, let it be limited number of guests so that we'll get enough time for delving.
Well, I've told you already, if you were listening, that because of the depth of what we have to discuss, it's gonna be me and you. I don't think you heard that, but yeah, there's much that we need to speak of, and we go get the Jesmed. That's fine. We are live now and talking about something else. Sirajin, this is not the last question, sir. Obviously, your government at the time, that's the All People's Congress government, Now, I want to talk about SLPP-led government or PAUPA-led government, the stronghold, waiting they see as the ace of spade, which is education. And this now the president and flagship program this, okay? Before the assumption of power by this government, the current government, we understand, say, there was a free primary school education for JSS schools, and there was an increase in budgetary allocation for schools and teachers. Then when they will be doing a ghost salary, your government will make an effort for wipe their names off the ghost salary. The point that they try for me, or wait, I want to let you answer, and the same question will go to the other guest. We know a thing or two about this, we've spoken about this before, is if education was free for primary and JSS schools, can you please break down the difference, although we now have quality added to free, but will you break down the difference for we, please? I think we don't lost Sirajin there. So Jesmed, I will take this question to you, or Sirajin, you're back. Waiting at the difference then, waiting at the difference now.
Well, for me, the difference then, that regardless whatever the APC government have spent on infrastructure, I think we're able to see them. We're able to see certain, even though you take me to some debt, and I can always ask you and say, me, if we be president, I'm really even afraid for take debt. Because when you read the confessions of the economic hitman, John Perkins, he going to say this IMF and World Bank, as Jesmed say, now people just contended for me, we take that from themselves and not even want for free at all. So, but if we are taking those debts, we don't do some infrastructure development, I would love to see the SLPP government now try for raise up the bar. But believe me, from side and up with 2 years ago, nothing, no change. And we also want for say, this commission of inquiry, we think say they not point so many fingers by APC politicians say they were corrupt, they did this. Now could see the report, no say sorry Kamara, when I be minister, this has been doing this money job. Like they see even ACC, they lost a lot of cases. Recently a former deputy minister of trade, Edna Ali Badara Mansari, he was exonerated of all almost 15 charges. It's a shame that it just they left pile charges on people and able not get substance or evidence. So even this, we want to see the white paper. And of course, we want to see if these people are really get evidence they mess up, may them go there aside, they may the law catch them, But as it is now, everybody just they like say now guesswork, like we say they say they do exams, say the question they come and begin to speculate. This is how speculation. Let until we don't get the three commission, don't get the report. Let them give you the white paper. No, so may they hold them to account. If they make the country they suffer a bit, so may they hold them, may them give the money. But if not so it be, may them stop for put the blame game. SF is responsible enough now for me them no say after 2 years they don't even need for begin they play them games here. So what as we all don't see, they not can't take boku to them put at their mouth and not choose anymore. Because they want to please everybody, and this is not good for governance. They also they go that then they feel say now by taxes they will run this country. But what they fail for realize that the more you levy taxes, now so the ordinary person they suffer, because everybody tries to get for recouping tax with the high tax we pay. What actually go for the clear goods is so exorbitant. At the end of the day, to watch you go buy that for 1p or 10p, they can't buy that for 1,000 euros just because somebody don't levy tax. And if you talk say taxes now for the people, they never pay the people and gain full salary. Why if they levy heavy taxes? So as it is, SLPP need for make until another 2 years. For me, then go then 3rd year, make them try for this something substantial for the people of this country. I can tell you, me na APC, but not unless SLPP fail, because if they fail, na SaLone fail. But the way
Okay, I think. Okay, Sirajin.
She say they really forget even if and this is not good for country.
Okay, thank you very much, sir. Jesmed, last word. Free education then under the All People's Congress, and this free and quality education under retired brigadier in government, His Excellency Julius Maada Bio. Your take, please. And you get the floor for close the floor, so you can encapsulate the entire program, the highs and the lows, and then I will finally come for the final grades for the SLPP government 2 years.
Well, with respect to this education, the changes they will don't make, to be honest with you, is 10 times better than waiting the meat. That's a fact. The education was in the dump, was in the gutters, under that Minkailu Mansari, Minkailu Jalo, Bari, whatever they call him. Whatever make, now is it Muktari or Minkailu, whatever name they call him. That guy had no clue whether there's some wickedness no more being get against the SaLone picking them on a dummy dumb, on a waiting. I don't understand why an Eskroma left that guy there for run with Ministry of Education for almost 10 years. But when it comes to the changes they do right now, they get opportunity for do more. There not be need for split the Ministry of Education into two. America way big so. We'll get over 300 million people then. Where they swallow SaLone 100 times and more. America, now one Minister of Education get, or sector of education. Now in SaLone they go get 4. If not for create jobs for party man, they no more. Because each one they get in deputy. Each one they get motoka when a government they spend them. Each one they get allowance to go when they spend them. Each one they get, so the budget when they allocate to education. By the time the money they reach to the beginning, they are like, but they don't take their own. So anyway. I don't see where the quality comes from in terms of the word quality, free, quality education. Okay, me don't write a document of how to reform the entire education system as alone. If you want to get a topic on that one, they just that one no more. I can send you a document, you look at and you pose questions from that document. Very transformational step. Under that process day, we not for declare free education within the first year. The first year we will focus on building the structures of the education sector, making sure that geographically we get schools in our areas that we're picking and we will get access to them. Geographically, we're able to get schools that we get structures where we open body, a quality education nowadays.
Yeah, but Jesmed, is it not easily said than done? Didn't the same government did the same thing, although the president fluff in line when I ask Kamara for custom? But for say, especially when intellectuals speak, professed politicians, it's easier said than done. You will agree with that, won't you?
Hey, man. You see, it's not a problem na SaLone.
No.
We don't ever get transformational leader.
Okay.
When you get transformational leader, where SaLone need badly right now, nothing is impossible. Would I be ever know say Rwanda will rise for the position where they should?
The problem is
now because we not get a transformational leader, Japan not get the kind of resources we will get, but Japan they are ahead of we right now. Rwanda go on at the same way. Let me give you small example of how you go transform a fund education as alone, because the fund inside another thing possible they talk about. You reinvent the way you fund education in the first place. This traditional method where government they allocate tax resources to education, where you get social director here, director there, director there, director there, director there. Like me, they pass a law say not more than 30% of every budget allocation to education, they go to the administrative aspect of education. Not more than 30%. So in other words, 70%, worst case scenario, 65% of everything they go directly into actual delivery of education services. The second thing, 2 ways.
Did you say 65% of your budgetary allocation will go towards the education project? Did you just say that?
Budgetary allocation for education. The budgetary allocation for education.
Yeah.
Let's say then they allocate 20 billion to education.
Okay.
30% of the one day, for exceed 30% administrative expenses.
I get your point. I thought
so
you were
30% of what they allocate to education.
Yeah, again, let we save that day for another day. We will come back on the program soon. We go look at Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, because you're going into a field which you well understand, which you've been researching on, which you've got programmed, you've written on it. So you're getting very, very comfortable, and I will have to cut you off at some point. So let me keep on Friday, Saturday, Sunday. We go come up with a program. We go dedicated, to just 3 aspects of national I've been just one fumble and for no say on this program here tonight. We want commend we star-studded panel. We've been also we send invitation to the government for at least an official for can represent them on the deliberation and on the 2 years in power. Nobody return we invite, we calls. We also send invitation to the party SLPP because by default they are the ones in power, so at least then we can defend if anything is said out of the way. Just like how earlier on Mr. Kutubu Koroma, a panelist, say something about another panelist as per how we understand them. Luckily, the panelists be there for debunk that. So everything went well tonight. We just want for everyone to know that. We did bring obviously Mr. Jesmed very soon again. And we want to say thank you very much, despite all the problems back home. Former APC parliamentarian, Honorable Sirajin, he managed for stay because. So I want to say thank you as well. For just conclude the program, we've been talking with the grade, with the give them one final grade on everything what we talk about. The agriculture program or the free education or the legislative, the judiciary and the executive. Again, you get the first option, Mr. Jesmed, for the Mami Suma, how you will grade this current government overall as per the 2 years in power.
At a ratio of 1 to 10, I give them.
You give them what, please?
I want to say 4, but maybe 3.
All right. He wanted to say 4, but he will stop at 3. Mr. Honorable Sirajin, how you go grade this government based on all we two on top or looking back, retrospecting 2 years ago, 2 years on, then and now, how you go grade them, sir?
When you as a opposition person, you grade them, then go say you're too stingy in waiting and call. But definitely, there's no way except they get half a pass mark, like 50 at all. So earlier I've been talking for time, but we begin to talk about judiciary, the police, the legislative, the executive. Believe me, I did follow Jesmed in stance say I will give them 30 over 100.
Wow. A very dismal figures, I must say, but the audience will decide whether it does reflect the reality. And just before we finally leave Fambulem, I just want to know that we get a program where they come up, we get lawyer Kaloko, they come up. I think during the course of this week, I go look at my diary and definitely Mr. Jesmed want to have another go, and I'm pleased to have him. Always brilliant stuff to have him on the show. But every election cycle, we know say politicians, especially old one, and they recycle themselves and come back and act as if they are the new messiahs for can't solve old problems until we see them get new solutions. Hopefully one day the people then go wise up, and as my good friend Jesmed say, one day we will get the transformational leader where we aspire forget. I go also left for Fambul and for no say. The energy sector, okay? The energy sector. They encourage, the All People's Congress encourage a lot of private investor them, independent power provider them. And before they left, the CEC agreement for 128 megawatts. I just feel compelled for read this notes. Because I've been scourging social media upside down, inside out. There is so much ignorance. People do not know about these things. And if you know the argument, obviously will change. And as we try for up the ante, a fine, and one of the things where we stand for now then and now is for providing viable information so people can get informed decision and where they can make based on the information where they get. And these are just facts. The CEC agreement containing 128 megawatts of energy had been signed. And we get an APC MP now where Shosek will verify those. Bumbuna 2 project, the contract for them had been signed. 50 megawatts in 2 phases of solar energy, 25 megawatts for Makov and 25 for national distribution had been signed. Mines and Minerals Act, although it was bad enough because the SLPP questioned them and revert some of their agreements then but it had been signed. And waiting then they say is, had they not signed it, the country would have been in a more bad situation and the SLPP being for start on a bad footing from nothing, but they had something to start on. The National Minerals Agency had been established and private investment and foreign direct investment, public-private partnership, which we call PPP, had already been set up. And there's so much more, the PPP, the Companies Act of 2009, Corporate Affairs Commission set up. So there was something that they hit the ground running. So it's not only the blame. At least they had to pick up from somewhere. And I think in a Jesmed, I talk about that point today, when it goes like, it's not only about the blame. You meet something, you pick up the mantle, but because they're not allowed the transition process for take place as it should have, then obviously you're going to struggle. And because there was an agenda, so there's always going to be a problem. But again, kudos to Honorable Sirajin. We also say that we wish the country well, we wish the government well, we wish the government succeed, because if the government succeed, the country succeeds, the citizens succeed. If they fail, we all fail. So we are all in this together. Once more, I want to say thank you to the panel. Jesmed, thank you very much.
But before you close, that last statement where you read about energy, I get some small exception.
Yeah, go on.
The APC government under Ernest Koroma spent over $760 million in 10 years under the energy sector. And the assessment to maybe not do before I write some of the policies there for the party. With 2.5 billion, you could build the entire energy infrastructure in Sierra Leone. Now, if Ernest Koroma in party, in government, spent almost half of that, then as they come out of power, the country going to darkness. That means they did not leave no energy infrastructure in the country. For what bring ship come from Turkey, sign contract with mafia enterprises then from Turkey. For go that you see the supply pump energy just to Freetown and very limited areas of the country. Is that energy?
Just a quick correction, Jesmed, whilst we still alive. You cannot call the Turkish ship a mafia. It's not a mafia, because even senior countries such as Ghana, then hire those barges. Because if the electricity consumption go up, you always turn around for look for alternatives. At the time the electricity consumption was going up, I mean the demand was going up, obviously, if the consumption is up. So they turn around and look for something like the barges when at the Turkish ship. It's not, it wasn't a mafia project, sir. It was a viable project.
No, it's the terms of the agreement that makes it a mafia.
Okay.
The mafia too goes into business.
Okay.
The mafia goes into business. They open factories, they build whatever, but the terms of how they run those businesses, what makes it a mafia. Okay.
Well, point noted. And on that note, we go end, here, disagree to agree, which is a good thing, here for we people. Thank you very much, panel, and good night. I salute you now all. Let's just play Bobo Pain again before
Honorable Sirajin, good night.
I don't mean I didn't use the music, but
God bless, man. Thank you so much.
Now, just for entertainment reasons. It's been a good run. We had difficulties from the start, but certainly we pulled it. There is when you persevere, you see gains. And I'm sure we get gains tonight, and so many Sierra Leoneans don't watch this tonight. Good night, everybody.
Yeah, good night. Thank you.
Thanks, man.
Great show. That was indeed a great show. So let me close with show now.